over to Matrix. So for those of you that are new to Matrix, Matrix is, I mean, this is your lifeline to all of the listings that are coming up. Let's see. I have Brandon trying to text message that, oh, he's having internet issues. Okay. So this is your lifeline. This is your main screen. I'm going to make mine just a little bit bigger. And hopefully that looks a little bit easier for you guys to see on your screen as well. And we've got tabs across the top, and then we have a lot of boxes here in the middle. I'm going to go a little bit smaller. And you may find that your home screen looks a little bit different from my home screen. And one of the cool things about that is you can customize this. So for instance, if you're someone who maybe is not worried about my listings, maybe you're just a buyer agent and that's not a tab you're worried about, you can collapse the tab by hitting the little triangle, or you can actually get rid of this little box by hitting the X. And it doesn't really go away. It actually goes under a tab called additional. So if you look around, you'll see one that says additional, and you can grab that. Just kind of left click and pull, and it will pull it back out. I guess I had my stats weren't in there either. Let's pull that one out and make that bigger. So I have no stats. Yes.
Can you lock that then so that they don't move around? Because I find when you're looking like on your phone, you can easily move those boxes around, and it's kind of a pain.
I don't know that there's a way to lock it. I've never heard, I never thought about it being like that on your phone. I do find it's hard on your phone because it's so little. Don't you have to make it big in order to click?
Yeah, and when you try to like expand, it usually ends up moving one of the boxes around. And
yeah, I that's not a feature that I've heard of.
Okay.
Yeah. But this main page, at least when you're working on a desktop, it's really nice to be able to have it just the way you like to use it and to see the things that you like to see. The only one you can't move around, and to move the boxes themselves, it's just grabbing them and moving them and dropping them wherever you like them to be. The only one you can't move is this news and alerts. And that's because when we first started doing this, the board thought if they locked the news and alerts box in the corner that we would actually read the things that are in there. Well, obviously we don't, because that's why you have those pop-ups when you first log in. And so then you have to read it or dismiss it. So that one does stay locked. Across the top, you've got a number of different options in here. Home, again, is this home screen. Search we'll be using throughout the time that we're together. There is a stats tab. So if you're looking for a quick way to find that information, that this is a lot of what you get from Les Solgrove. If you've seen his reports, he pulls a lot of it right out of here. So you can really narrow down your market area and then pull out some preset reports as well. You can customize them. That gets into a whole other level of matrix that we're not going to hit today. My matrix is where everything that belongs to you lives in matrix. So this is where your contacts are, your listings, your information, which we'll just hit briefly, your CMAs, your saved searches, everything that is custom to you lives under my matrix. Next up is realist tax. And realist tax is something we'll cover on another day. But what realist tax does for you is it gives you the opportunity to find market areas, and you can export up to 2,000 labels or 2,000 contacts per month under this system. So it's a great way if you're wanting to do a mailer on your own that you're able to pull that information. You can also do that through RPR. And RPR is Realtor Property Resource. And it is a free tool that you can use with your NAR membership. And this one gives you even more options as far as CMAs, as far as property information. I would recommend spending some time going through that and even watching some of the webinars on that. Next, you have some calculators, you have some of your quick links, but let's hit that input tab just for a brief time. And so this is where you can put in your information. And so you can edit what you look like on here. So this is where you would add in your photo, which is an odd place for it to be. And so you just put in your agent ID, which is your Matrix login, and hit that edit. And I think that's where you can change your password if you want to. I don't recommend changing your Matrix password. It gets complicated. But you can put your photo in, and we'll look at that too. So let's go back to my Matrix and go into my information. And we're not going to spend a lot of time in here. I want you to go back after the class and just make sure that all of your information is correct and that you've filled out anything that you want to fill out. The header and footer is where you can customize what your reports look like that you print out for clients. And then your email signature lives in here too. So that's always a good one to add in. So again, that's under my matrix, under my information. So you'll do that later. Okay. Any questions on just the basic setup info?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And say, I heard somebody come on. I'm like, yes, I have a question. Okay. No, I'm going to take that as we're good then. All right. So the big stuff that we do is we search for property. So let me pop over here. I have some notes. And there are a number of ways that we can search. The easiest way to search is in the bar that lives right at the top. And this is called the speed bar. So it's a lot like a Google search bar, but it's a not very smart Google search bar. It understands shorthand. And so you kind of have to learn the shorthand that the speed bar understands. And if you go to the little question mark, it will give you some examples of the different shortcuts that you can use. And we're going to hit a lot of the most used ones today. So let me get rid of that. So the first thing to think about is one of the easy things that we want to search for are MLS numbers. And the speed bar is perfect for that. So if you want to search for an MLS number, let's go ahead and search for 60515. So that was 600-515. Sorry, anybody. 600-515. And then just hit enter. It seems to be quicker than going over to the little search tab on the side here. And so no matter what the status is, because we put in an MLS number, that's what pops up. Now we can search for multiple MLS numbers here and no comma necessary. You just put a space in between. And so let's also search for 593367. And that's 593367. And again, just hit enter. And so in this area, you can actually search for, I know we've tested for up to 40 MLS numbers. Why you would search for more than a handful, I don't know, but know that you can search for as many MLS numbers at one time as you choose right there. Easy peasy. All right, so let's go ahead and clear that out. And so depending on the browser you're in, you may need to backspace, highlight, delete. The other way that you can clear out is just by changing tabs. So even just by going back to the home tab, that gives us a clear search field again. So this is a good place to also look for an address. So say we're going to look for 5325 162nd Court. There's a couple things to know about putting in an address. The first thing is we want to put in the house number. So that'll be 5325 and a space. And then we don't put in any directionals. So if there was north, south, east, west, whatever, we don't put that in. And now this one happens to be a number street, which is a little different. So this is 162nd Court. So we'll type in 162, but because it's a number street, we also need to put in that little extension. So this will be ND. So for an example, if it were First Street, it'd be 1ST, second is 2ND. So 162nd, and we don't put in any street type. So no court, drive, street, none of that. So just hit enter. And so now you'll see that we have actually 4 hits that come up for 5325, 162nd. And so that's where we can look at which one it is. I'm going to quick insert a column so we can look and see. I'll show you how to add columns as well.
Would you just look at the status then and see active or?
Yep, that's one of the ways that you can look at it as well. I was trying to put in city because sometimes you'll get, it might be a different city, especially if it's like a second street or something.
Okay.
There we go. Those all look like they were the same listing. You can see originally it was a land listing, and then you can see it was listed in 14, and then 15 for more, and then 19, it's listed actively again.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so let's go back to home. And so the next thing we want to do is look for another address. So the address we'll look for this time is 1573 Southeast Blackthorn Drive. So again, we start with the house number or street number, 1573. Because it's Southeast Blackthorn, we don't put in the Southeast. And now Blackthorn. So here's where you may have some struggles. Is Blackthorn 2 words? Is Blackthorn 1 word? Does it have an E at the end of thorn? Does it not have an E at the end of thorn? Because we're unsure of the spelling, we've got something that we can do here. I'm pretty sure we can all spell black. So type in black and then use your asterisk, which is your Shift 8 key. And your asterisk is used for any unknown. We can put it at the beginning. We can put it at the end. We can put it on both sides. And we went ahead, and now we have 1573 Southeast Blackthorn Drive, and it's actually Blackthorn is 1 word with an E on the end. Had we looked for Blackthorn being 2 words or without the E on the end, the search bar would not have understood that and wouldn't have found anything. And that can be really frustrating. So that's where that asterisk is the best thing ever. All right. Let me move this over a little bit. I'm working on 2 computers, which is kind of weird. All right. So the next thing that we want to go to, let's go ahead and clear that search out. As we've searched for properties, sometimes we need to find an agent. We need their information, or we had a client that said, hey, I drove by a house. It was listed by so-and-so. I don't remember what street it was on. Thank you. Don't you love it when they don't give you all the information? It's great. So if you want to look for an agent, we can very quickly do that. And actually, Kyle Van Winkle is my sample on this one. So to look up an agent, you type in AG is the shortcut for agent and space. And then we want to look for Kyle Van Winkle. So it's easiest to work with a last name. We could have used McCole Van Walbeek too, because she has a similar issue in her name. Again, is Van Winkle 1 word? Sometimes a space is put in, sometimes it's not. So we can use that same asterisk, type in Van, put in your asterisk, and hit enter. Now, what you'll find this time is it's going to ask you a question. So is that Van a first name, a last name, or are you looking for a street called Ag Van? So last name is like Van. Make sure it's highlighted blue. depending on your device, sometimes it won't highlight just right, and then click on that. And so now what we get are all of the agents whose last names start with Van. And so let's find our friend Kyle Van Winkle, and we can click on his agent ID, which is right at the front there. It's the 00573. And this is his agent card. So remember at the beginning, this input tab, I said to make sure that's where you put in your photo. This is what happens if you don't put in your photo. You're the shadow head agent. So make sure that you upload that. And that's one of those places where agents forget to change it. So you'll see some really old pictures in there, which can be a little funny. So this will give you information. It will tell you exactly where his office is. It will tell you his email, his phone numbers, and then it will also give you his active listings. So when you click on the active listings, that can help you find that property that client was asking about. The only thing to keep in mind is all that shows are the active listings. So if the property that you're looking for has gone pending, unfortunately, it's not going to appear there. And we can search for that in a regular search. All right. So we can also start a basic search in this area. Now notice if we try to clear this out, we also have a check mark that says other criteria. So not only would you have to clear this out, but you would have to uncheck that check mark. That's why in this case, it's just easier to move tabs. And we have a nice blank slate again. So let's say you're looking for your client and you're just doing a super quick search. They've got an idea of what they want. Maybe they're in a price point that's a little bit of a struggle, or they're very narrowed down in what they're looking for. We can do a quick search here, or we can start a search here. So let's say they're looking for active properties. You can type in A for active and then put in a space. It would be P for pending, S for sold, X for expired. Just very, very simple searches in here. Say they're looking for something between 200 and 250,000, which is a very popular price point right now. In this area, we need to put in the $ and then 200-250. Now notice that there's not a $ in front of 250. There's only a $ in front of 200. So it's $ 200-250 and then a space. In this area, it doesn't matter what order that you put the criteria in, or even how much criteria you put in there. The only thing that has an order to it are the bedrooms and bathrooms. And so if you're going to put in bedrooms and bathrooms in this area, bedrooms always come before bathrooms. So say we're looking for at least a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. We would type in 3 for 3 bedrooms, actually plus, because of course they would probably be open to 3 or more, space, and then 2+. So 2 or more bathrooms. And say that they are very limited in where they're looking. They have to be in Waukee. So let's type in Waukee and then hit enter. Hey, we actually got 41 that came up between 200 and 250. Now, my guess is that we have a whole bunch of condos and townhomes in this, if we look really, really quickly through this. And so it may be much more narrow as to what they're looking for. So this is a good starting point for your search. And so now let's look a little bit more at the criteria. So on the right-hand side, you'll see 3 tabs. We're currently in the results tab. We could take a peek at the map really quickly on this one. Because we put in Waukee, we could maybe narrow down the area of Waukee. And now let's go to criteria. So we could continue with our criteria. And for this one, if we were to go ahead and put in, let's see, residential, and then residential under property class, you'll see that we actually ended up down at 9 because we have now excluded the condos and townhomes. So if we hit our results tab, there are really only 9. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of cool though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're in this area. There's a couple things I want to point out while we're here, and right above those tabs are your recent searches. So if you click on your recent searches, you'll find that that's like the save your rear spot, because sometimes you'll get to typing and you'll move on and you'll forget, or your computer will completely die, and you'll have to move to a different device. This will save up to 50 snapshots. And what takes that snapshot is when you go to your results. So if you were just in your criteria and you were putting criteria in but never hit results, it would not save your criteria. It just saves when you take that snapshot for results. So you can see everything that we searched for in the speed bar. And this only goes back about a week as well. So this is not a long-term save, but it can be great if you're doing some work for one client and you get a phone call from another client and you quick need to look up an MLS number, to put out a fire. Just quick hit the results. That's going to take your snapshot, look up what you need to look up, and you know that you have that saved and you can go back to it. Any questions on the speed bar? I'm getting heads shaking, which is good. And it's from Tracy's like, you haven't shown me anything I don't know yet, but yay, I'm getting 2 hours from the privacy of my own home. Is that about right? Okay, yeah. I can work with that. Okay, so now let's go to just a full-blown search. And where we can go to that is under the search tab. You'll see residential. And if you haven't been in this before, you'll go over to quick. But once you've kind of defaulted quick, it appears right below residential just to make it faster for you. And so this is our full-on search area. And so let's kind of walk it through like we're looking for a home for a client, and we'll be able to do the full search with everything that they're looking for. We're going to do a map search, and then we're also going to save the search. We're going to send it out, email it out in 3 different ways. And then we're also going to customize how your results come in as well. So let's do a very, very simple search. I always start with Bob the buyer because we'll put him in as a client when we get to that spot. And generally we're looking for active homes, so we'll leave it as active. But something to know, if you are looking to do a CMA, your pending and sold default to 180 days. You can change that number of days very easily. You can also go to the calendar and you can go back in calendar time. So maybe what you want to do is go back a year because you have a very unique property or it's a crazy time of year. And you can put it in as a year and hit OK. You could also do that as a time frame in between. So maybe we just want in the last 2 weeks. We can click the last 2 weeks and hit OK. So there's different options as to how you use this. But for today, we're just going to do the active in our search. I'm going to make this just a little smaller to see. Now, I can't really make it small enough so that you can see. But if you look on the bottom of yours, you've got live matches that happen in the bottom left. So I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger still so we can see it. The nice thing with those live matches is on our previous MLS systems, if you put in criteria, say for a CMA, you would put in your criteria and then you would hit search. Well, sometimes it would still come back with like 300 results, or it would come back with 0. And then you had to kind of backtrack and figure out, what did I put in that knocked it back to 0, which in real life is a pain. This way you can kind of keep track of how many results do I really want it to pull, and then I can just keep an eye on it as I go. So we've got our active status in here, and we'll start down the right-hand side because that tends to be the information that people think about most as they go through. So again, let's look at that price point, that $200,000 to $250,000 price point. And we could type in 200-250 in there, but unfortunately, there are some agents who subscribe by the, I'm going to list it for $199.9. And so that $199.9 home may have been perfect for your $200,000 client, but your $200,000 client is never going to see it. So I like to do a cap and then do minus. So let's do 250 minus. So we're down to 1561 matches. And you can do this either direction. And I've had some agents who have said, well, I'm going to end up with so many if I don't, put that bottom number in there. And that may be true, but reality is by the time you put in all of your criteria, you're probably going to be closer to that top end anyway. So if you do find that your criteria is not narrow enough and you do need that bottom number, then you can always go back in and change this. Now we'll look at the number of bedrooms. And so again, we're going to do that 3 or more bedrooms. So that's where we do 3+. And then bathrooms get a little bit tricky. I almost never use the full, partial, and half options simply because in our MLS, total baths accounts for all of those. It's only if you have somebody who's very, very specific, and then I feel like it's only a one-off. So for us, total number of baths, every unit could be any one of these. So you could potentially have 2 there if you listed 2, and it could be a 3/4 or a shower bath and a half bath, or it could also be 2 full baths. There's just no way to put that in there. So unless you have somebody who's very specific that there needs to be at least 2 bathrooms with tubs, you probably wouldn't use those as frequently. So let's do 2+ in that area. So 3+, 2+, and we should be down to 887 matches. And so we haven't put in an area yet. So this is throughout the entire MLS area. So this is all members of DMAR that are members of DMAR and all of their listings. So we could get things up into Ames because Kyle does list on here. We can get them clear south into Osceola. I've even seen once or twice somebody put something on there that's listed over in Council Bluffs or listed, in, I saw one in Northeast Iowa. I can't think of the name, in Dubuque. So, anything in the state can be listed on there, but you need to think about why. Go ahead.
You said that Kyle listed on DMAR for like an Ames.
He lists in DMAR and in the Ames and the Central Iowa Board.
Oh, okay. So he's just getting more people, more availability.
Yes.
Having both associates. Okay.
Yeah. And that's one of those things to think about, that because your market is Ames, is it worth it for you to go ahead and join that board as well so that you can list it on both boards? Do you want to partner with Kyle and so he can list it? You can do kind of a dual listing kind of thing. You have to kind of see what's going to be in your best interest for your business. That cost. Yeah.
Thank you.
It is harder on border areas. You get over into Newton, and Newton is technically in the DMAR area, but there's one company that is not part of DMAR. They're part of the old board. And that all happened when there were boards that merged. And the same thing happened Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. They're separate boards. And you know, a lot of your consumers are going to look in both areas. So you just have to look at the location of the listing. But very good question. Let's see. So we got to baths. And now we're going to get to the spot where we get kind of into area. So there are a lot of ways that we can put area in as search criteria. And it's usually best to just choose one. We could do school district, but keep in mind, school district is the big school district. So if you have somebody who, you know, the Des Moines Public Schools, that may not be one of the things they're looking for. You could go through the different school districts. It's not a great search criteria in our area. We don't list it out like some other areas do. And so that's when they want to look at the school district websites to see where those lines are. So school district's one. We could use county, and using county is usually best if you're searching for acreages. People tend to be pretty open to an entire county area. We could do zip code. So zip code can help narrow down areas a little bit. If you think about an area like Beaverdale, that's a very easy zip code search. Ankeny is now split into 2 zip codes. So if you have somebody who's a little more specific to which side of Ankeny they want to be on, you can use zip code there. And then we could go on to area or city. And again, we don't want to use both. And do we have anybody on who knows the difference between area and city? Or have you always wondered?
It's like more rural. Is that what it is?
It is not.
No.
It is not. Any other guesses?
Eyes? I don't know.
What is it? All right. I'll let you know on this one. So area are lines that have been drawn by DMAR. And so really the biggest thing that will do for you, let me kind of scroll through here, is it will help you with Des Moines itself. So if we are doing city, that is strictly based on address. And so area helps narrow down that big chunk called Des Moines into, what is it? 1, 2, 3, I can't even count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different areas. And so even downtown is kind of chunked out separately from that. We'll get rid of all of those. So that's where the difference is. And to see exactly where those area lines are, you'll want to pop on the DMAR website, and there's an MLS area on the left. I believe it's on the left-hand side in one of the little drop downs where you can see exactly what's considered what for an area. For today, let's go ahead and use city, and say the client that we're working with wants to stay in certain areas. So he wants to stay in Clive, Urbandale, Waukee, and West Des Moines. So we have 4 different areas that we could scroll through, or we can use this little search tab, which will make it a little bit easier. Whoop, my touchscreen got rid of it. And so we can find, let's see, we want Clive. What all was I saying? Clive, Urbandale, West Des Moines, and Waukee. Urbandale, Waukee, West Des Moines. Clive, Urbandale, Waukee, West Des Moines. Now you may be able to double click, is what I did on my device, or you can use your ad. Just make sure that Clive, Urbandale, Waukee, and West Des Moines all make it over into current selection. And then click OK at the bottom. And now we're narrowed down to 137 for results. Everybody good? Anybody have a different number and are trying to figure out why? Okay. All right. Let's put in some more criteria. For right now, I'm not going to put in anything under living area square feet. You know, when you're in that kind of price point, you're kind of going to get what you're going to get. So, you know, if you do need to narrow it down, that could be some place to do that. But as we're going along, let's go to the left-hand side now. And so we started out with active. And so under property class, we'll do that condo. Nope, we want residential. And it is, I find, really hard to see on Chrome until you click out of it. If you are on like an iPad, when you click on that, you'll actually have just little check marks. And so some people find that a little bit easier. So we're going to do residential. Now that dropped us down to 57 right there in our price point. And we have a couple options in here. So the first one is architecture, which is one of our newer categories that we have in there. As a search tool, I probably wouldn't use it a lot, simply because it may help you find, you know, if you're looking for something that's mid-century modern or art deco. But the reality is these are put in by agents who don't know or understand architecture for the most part. You know, just because you put a brewer chair in a modern house does not make that house does not make that home mid-century modern. It just doesn't. And I'm going through some of these that I will see a home that's decorated in a style, but the architecture doesn't support that. So as a full search feature, it's not awesome yet. You can poke around with a little bit, but don't narrow down too far because not enough agents are using that. All right. Style can be important though, because if you have someone who is looking, maybe they are looking for, you know, a two-story, or it must be a ranch. You know, they're very specific in what they're looking for. But say the client that we're working with, the only thing that they're not interested in is a split foyer. Now we could go through and we could click on every single one of these and it would be very difficult. Oh, I'm down to 0 matches. What did I do? Oh, because I'm clicking on something in here. Let me get out of here. There we go. No. There we go. If you ever need to unclick something, and for whatever reason, I'm not able to scroll through these like I can usually scroll through today, you can use your control key or your command key if you're on a Mac and hold it down and it will unselect. So if you need to select multiples, you can hold your control or command key down and choose multiples. Again, difficult to see. And then if you just click on one, that's all you'll get. So say our client is open to anything except he does not want a split foyer. So let's go down to split foyer. So we click on split foyer and then we can choose not down below. So that means anything but a split foyer. And surprisingly, there were 5 that came out of that. Now, I always like to do a reminder. Does everybody know the difference between a split foyer and a split level? Somebody want to pop on and share? Unmute.
A split foyer. When you walk in, you're on a landing and you either go up or down. And a split level is typically you walk in and you have like your living room and then your kitchen and then your stairways on the side, one going up to bedrooms, going down to family room, and then sometimes more stairs going down to the basement.
Exactly. Exactly. I do think split foyers get a bad rap. If they had bigger foyers, you know, bigger landings, I think they would be so much easier to sell. but they don't. But there are even builders who are building new ones now. So, don't discount that, because it does give a lot of bang for the buck as far as finished square footage. But the buyer that we're working with here, he's got really very, very much against split foyers. And so we don't want to send him any split foyers. So we should be down to 52. And so now basement, we don't need to worry about that too much for this client. Let's look at garage and say he does want an attached garage. And so he's interested in either a 2 or a 3 car attached garage. So again, we want to click on 1, hold down your controller command key. Well, let's do 2 attached, hold down controller command, and 3 attached. So that's going to drop us down to 37. So every little thing takes us down just a little bit. Now our client is very insistent that he does want a fireplace. So let's go over to fireplaces in the lower right and do 1+. And that narrows us down to 24 matches. So again, every little thing. And we could work with year built. If he wants something newer, we can choose, maybe he wants something less than 10 years old. Now, because of the price point that we're working in, probably not going to have a lot of choice there. But we still have 24. And then we may get to things like that are a little bit more specific. And that's where we'll go down to the lower left. And this is where you'll see additional fields. And so you can add and remove. If you don't have any in there, I think it just says add. But I've added quite a few at this point. And some of the search fields that have been really popular are the ones that I've added in. So go ahead and click on your add or remove. And then you'll see that everything that is on the MLS data sheet is available under available fields. So you can add in whatever it is that you need to search for, and then they will live there at the bottom. But some of them that I like, and I'm going to go back, it's easier to look at them for me. Newer proposed in new construction. So under new construction, technically it is proposed until it has framing walls, and then the status should be changed to new. So if you were looking at homes with a client or with a buyer, if you see new, you should expect to see, a foundation and framing walls up. Again, not all agents understand the difference. So you usually want to reach out if it's a new build to find out the finished stage that it's in. You might look for builder. The secure showing instructions. So that is one of those pieces that is part of the the listing safety form or the showing safety form. So if the seller has said, I do not want this shown to any unidentified buyers, you cannot take a buyer there that you have never met before or you have not identified. So you either have to meet them in person, you can meet them virtually, but if it says cannot be shown to unidentified buyers, you're actually in violation of your showing obligations if you show that to someone that you have not identified. So maybe they've sent you a copy of their driver's license. There's a lot of things that are considered meeting them. You can search by last name. I use the remarks a lot. So this is one of those things, and it doesn't work in the cities and the search that we're doing now. But if you've ever tried to look for a property or will try to look for a property where you can have horses, you're going to love this tip, because there's no field for horses, but an agent would not be doing their job if they didn't mention horses in the remarks. So all you'll need to do is put an asterisk, horse, asterisk. Now, does that mean that for sure you can have horses there? well, no, someone may have referred to a horse-like barn or, made some other type of horse reference, but there's a pretty good chance that that's going to narrow down areas where you could actually have horses instead of having to go through individually and look. So I love that tip. Hopefully you do too. Hopefully Tracy hopefully that one's new for Tracy of all the things that she's learned. Maybe not. But one of the other things that you can do, searching in remarks, and we've got a new field now for 55 plus communities, and that's a new field that just happened. But if there's something that you don't want to see in the remarks, that's when you can use the asterisk. And so for a while we were putting in asterisk 55 asterisk so that if anything came up under remarks for a 55 plus community, and we just used 55 because some would use the plus sign and some would actually type out plus, that would exclude all of those listings. So your asterisk is for an unknown, and then your exclamation point is for exclude. Pretty cool. I know, that's a hidden trick there. You've got your exterior, your amenities. And so I do always like to mention your amenities and your pool, because if the pool is not owned by that particular homeowner, you will not use this pool category. It will be under community swimming pool over here. So you will never use both. It's either the community swimming pool, and you don't designate what type of pool it is, but if you've designated the type of pool, that means that homeowner owns and maintains that pool. So never use both. Rent restriction description, that one was new, and it's a great one to look for. Let's see, pet restrictions, that's a newer one that was great to see. You can search the legal. So if you are looking for a particular subdivision, usually that some of that is listed in the legal description as well. So again, you're using the asterisk. Whoop, I'm still up in remarks. You're still using that asterisk on either side of the subdivision that is in that legal description, and that will help narrow it down. And then fence type was new as well. So take a peek and cruise through those a little bit. But where we ended up with about 24. So we'll go to results in that area. And again, take a peek on the map. I feel like I missed something. Did I miss? I hit residential. I was just curious about those. And sometimes what will happen, oh no, that makes sense now. Those are the smart homes that are in that price point. Unfortunately, when you do a search, and that's kind of what I was looking at is, I saw all these on Blue Sage Lane, and I'm like, I bet those are condo townhomes. Unfortunately, you can set up an automated search for a client, and if it's inputted incorrectly, so if whoever inputs it puts it in as residential instead of condo townhome, that will go out to your client. So just kind of forewarn them a little bit that is a possibility, that it's not that you don't understand their needs, and it's not that you didn't put the information in correctly. It's just someone else inputted it incorrectly, and that's why it came across. And it's super frustrating, but there's not a lot of way around it other than having to send it over to the board to have it inputted. Can you imagine? And I believe Cedar Rapids does that. And so it takes a long time for their listings to go up. There's none of this, oh, I got a listing at 4 o'clock on Friday. That happens in Cedar Rapids. It's going to be Monday before that goes up. So, I mean, there's an upside and a downside to all of that. We work with an occasional oops because of operator error. Okay, so let's look at those on the map. And so now we have these kind of scattered all over, right? And so we can narrow down from there. But now what I want to do is I want to take you over to a map search. So as part of the map search, let's go ahead and go to criteria and let's get rid of the cities, because if we're doing a map search, it doesn't really matter. So we can delete them out. You could go in and then, delete them out of, remove them from your current selection, whatever's quicker for you. But that takes us back up to 151 matches with the other criteria that we've already put in. And so now our scenario is our client needs to live within a certain proximity to a location. So for this particular one, let's say that our client needs to live, he needs to live within 5 miles of the Clive Police Department. So I know that always sounds a little bit funny, but in other search things that we would have to do, we would have to go to the map, make it small, try to find the Clive Police Department, drop a pin, and do a radius. The nice thing with our criteria is we can do a map selection here. So go into your criteria. We want to be within, let's use the drop down, 5 miles of the Clive Police Department, which is 8505 Harbach. So 8505 Harbach, H-A-R-B as in boy, A-C-H. And it should come up as we type. There we go. 8505 Harbach Boulevard. And you'll see that the red map area selected pops up. And so now if you go to map, you'll see a perfect radius around 8505 Harbach. Now this can be really great for a number of reasons. You could be doing a CMA and you want to do maybe a 1 mile radius around your subject property. So that's a super quick way to do it. You'll just put in your 1 mile radius of your subject property. And now you'll see that on the map. And so now with this next step, I'll give you another great example. So now our buyer has kind of looked at this area and he's decided that he does not want to live south of 235 for whatever reason, that whole, south area. He doesn't want to have to deal with the interstate for whatever reason for where he's going. And now we have some mapping tools that live here. We do have our radius, we have a rectangle, we have a polygon, and then we have a freehand polygon that I haven't played with. I think that works a little bit more if you're using a pen on a touch screen. But let's use the polygon. And so when you click on the polygon, because he doesn't want to be south of 235, we need to exclude everything south of 235. We can't move the circle because then if we move the circle, we're going to move it further out than 5 miles. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to click every time the road kind of changes here. And I need to encompass the entire lower part of the area. And when I click at the end, it'll ask me, do I want to delete the shape, which makes the shape go away, and you get to do this again. Include this shape, which we don't want that additional space. We really want to exclude this shape. So now we're going to exclude. And so it redlines every area that we don't want to be in. Not the bad redlining, but it deletes that area. And so we can also adjust if you just kind of hover at the side. If you need to make some small adjustments, you can do that. But by doing this, it also gives us the opportunity to look at something like we had a buyer who was looking for a home in a particular school district, an elementary district, but they also wanted to be able to bus. So they needed to be more than 2 miles away from the school. So we went through and we polygoned around that school district area. And then we did a 2 mile radius around the school and excluded the radius around the school. So that way we could send out an automated search, and there was, a 95% chance that the homes that went out would work, instead of having to go through and manually look at what are the homes that will work, what will not. And I always say 95% chance because, it could be on one side of the street or the other and come up. And you always want to send it back to the buyer to make those phone calls to determine, if they purchase that home, will their children be able to get into that school? Because even being in a school district, in our area, you may not be able to get into that school. So you have to kind of kick that part back to the buyers. Questions on that? The mapping's pretty awesome. Now, as you'll see where you've got that include this shape, that also gives you the opportunity to work with that client who says, I would live in this neighborhood or this neighborhood or this neighborhood. And I think you can do, I believe it's up to 10 shapes. I might be wrong on that, but I think it's 10 shapes on one search. And then you don't have to do separate searches. You can just do it all in one search and just do it by shape. So that's a great feature that you can do as well. So let's go ahead. Oh, and while we're here, let's do a couple things. I'm going to hit results because that's going to take my snapshot in case I do a bad thing, and go back to the map. But across the top here, the little broom clears all of my shapes. I don't want to do that. There are layers that are in here as well. And so the different layers that you can have include parcels, zip codes, the cities, the counties, neighborhoods, parcel characteristic trends. Now you'll have to zoom in. I mean, this is letting us know if you want to see those, you need to zoom in. Let's look at the trends. It'll give you median prices. A lot of this comes from RPR, points of interest. So that's a fun one. So if we have someone who knows that they need to be close to a gas station, or they want to be far away from fire and police, you'll see it won't let us click that yet because we haven't zoomed in enough. So if I go to my map, see how far I need to zoom and see if it will let us do that. Nope, still not zoomed enough. All right, so let's see where the nearby gas stations are. Do you see how that little gas station popped up? So that's kind of the zoom level that you need to be at. And you can move it around a little bit. I feel like there should be more that come up. I may not be giving it enough time. So layers live there. And the other thing that you have is this little recenter. So if we click recenter, it's going to take us right back to where we were. Because sometimes you'll move the map around, or you'll get hyper focused like I just was. It's like, now I don't even know how to get back to where I was. That's where you can use that little recenter. All right. Questions? Anybody struggle with the mapping tool, or you see that it's pretty cool? I miss being in a classroom with y'all. I really do.
It's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
I've never used the portion to block out or to map out the fire stations or gas stations, or like some of those details. So that's nice.
Yay! Shannon got a new one because you've been in it for a long time. So
yeah,
whoa.
I didn't realize this was a 2-hour class, and I didn't realize what level it was going to be at, but
okay.
I'm here.
But you got something.
I got something.
Yay. Usually, I mean, and at some point you'll have to renew too. So you get hours.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
So this is searching for properties, right? For buyers.
Yes.
Now, could you do this also when you set up their search?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So that's the next piece that we're going to go to. Is this is the search that we've set up. So these are the current homes that are available. So now we'll walk through saving the search and then doing that auto piece where
Okay.
they'll automatically go out to them.
Awesome.
Okay. So let's go ahead. We'll go over to results just because it's easier to look at. It brings this bar up a little bit more. And so at the bottom, we've been working in the action tab right now. We've also got the refine tab, the save tab, and then the carts tab. So we'll start out first in sending information out to the client. So the first step will be we're going to send out just a couple of these over to the client to see if maybe we're on the right track or maybe we're really far off for what they're looking for. So if you select a couple of these, you'll notice that the bar lights up. And so that gives us more options to work with. And the first thing that we want to do is email just these two out to the client. So let's hit email. And I want you to go ahead and create a new contact. And I usually set up one named Bob Buyer. And then I use my email because I want you to set it up so you can see the 3 different ways that you can send info to your client. I want you to see it from the client perspective. And so just first name Bob, last name Buyer, and then with your email address. So because Bob and I are old friends, I can just type in his name. And that's one of the nice things that Matrix does too, is if you try to put in a client a second time, it'll say, hey, Bob's already in there. Do you just want to use that? So it doesn't allow you to put in multiples of the same client. In the old system, I may have had 3 or 4 of the same client on occasion. And so in real life, I'm usually a fan of BCC me a copy of this message so that I can search it really easily in my email as well. In this one, because you're Bob, don't check that. For subject, we're just going to call this one email. And in real life, you'd write a nice note. Hey, these are a couple that I thought you might be interested in. Let me know your thoughts. Excuse me. And then we'll go ahead and hit send. So go ahead and send that to yourself. And what you'll find, and I'll have you look at these after the class, is what you'll find is this takes the client to a mini portal. And so they're able to view these 2 homes or properties that you've sent over to them, and they can view them on a map. They can, look at all of the different pictures. It's a functioning portal. So I call it the mini portal because you've just given them kind of a snapshot, but they've got choices. Now, the next way that we can send out is we can send out a report. And sometimes you may work with a client and they're like, oh, I can't find anything when you send it to me in the portal. I always hate to characterize that they might be a little bit older client, but they might be. And so you just want to send them a report. And so in order to do that, it seems counterintuitive, but we actually need to go to print. So just leave those 2, a couple of them check marked, go to print. And now what you'll see are all of the options for flyers that you can send out. So this is the one that you think about. If I were going to print it up and hand it over to the client, what report would I want to do? Now, you do need to remember that you cannot ever send out agent reports to anyone who is not a licensee. And the reason for that is actually it has a lot to do with client security, because there's information in the agent report, like whether or not the property is vacant or not, what the showing instructions are. And, from a monetary standpoint, it also has the listing agent on it. And you just don't want that. You want to promote yourself, not somebody else. But really there's agent remarks that might be there that are not for public consumption. So you can choose your client view that you like, and you'll find one that you really like a lot. So for instance, I usually like the client full, but if you're sending over, maybe you have an investor and you are sending over, he's just like, I just want 1-page flyers and I just want a good overview of all of them. Maybe you've got 12 that you're sending. You could also send out the client single line at the same time. So by holding down your controller command key, you can choose multiple reports. So this will give that single line overview of all of the properties that you're sending out. And then the client full is that individual report on every property. And so now as you go to the bottom, I mean, you could print them if you were in person, but we're going to do email PDF. So hit email PDF. And now Bob is your old friend. So you should be able to just start typing Bob, insert that. Again, usually I'm a fan of BCC, but not today. You see that we have 2 displays that we're emailing. And subject line for this one, I want you to call it print email PDF. So that when you go back and look at it in your email, it'll help you remember how we got there. So this is that print email PDF. And then hit send at the bottom. My email keeps popping. It's like, you keep sending me stuff. Yes, I know. All right, so let's go back to results. All right, good so far? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to save the search, and then we're going to send out auto emails. And so let's go over to the save button. We're in the actions button. We'll go to save. And you'll see that we could go straight to new auto email without saving the search. Actually, we can skip the save search, but if you do choose to save the search, it's just new save search. All you need is a name, a contact, and hit save. So it's just super easy to do. And so you may want to save the search without doing that auto email, but let's go ahead and go into new auto email. And this has a lot of options in it, and we'll walk through them. The first thing with an auto email is we need to choose our contact. So choose Bob, or we could create a new contact here as well. It does put in the information so you can see it. Again, usually I'm a fan of BCC, not today. And then for subject, let's call this one auto email. Because when you get this one and view it as your client, this takes you into the fully functioning client portal. They can create their own searches. They can, change the views on everything. They can send you messages through the portal. So you need to spend some time kind of poking through there from the client standpoint, just so that you're familiar with it. It has improved over the years. It was really clunky when it first came out. So now what you'll see is there's a nice default letter. You can change this either individually for this client, or you can set it as a default. If you do one that's like, oh, that's what I want to say to all of my clients when I first set them up. And then that way you don't have to retype it every time. And then the recurring email, again, you can also customize that as well. So let's scroll down. Now what you'll see is it has saved the criteria. Don't spend time when you're doing a save search or doing an auto email individually check marking out of that search, because this is not what that is. This will give them everything out of that search. So that's the big thing to remember. So you can take a peek at the criteria. You can always go back and adjust that. So now we'll get into our settings. And concierge is kind of a cool setting. And what concierge does for you, well, it bounces a little bit when I do it, is concierge does the search, and then you get notification because you'll want to get the alert. You'll get notification that a property matches the criteria, and then you as the agent needs to log into Matrix and take a look at that and decide if you're going to release it to go to your client. So upside and downside, and it really just depends on who your client is, who you are, and what that looks like together. So concierge works really great for a very particular client. So you may have a client who says, you know, here's my budget, here's my price point. I don't want to see any home that has white cabinets in it. No white cabinets. And you're like, great. There is no way for me to go through and put that in my search criteria. You know, that's the client who's already fired 2 agents because all they sent them were houses with white cabinets. So you can set up the search, and then they come to you. You can take a quick peek through the photos on the ones that fit everything except for that criteria, and then you can release those to the client. Now, you may be an agent who wants to be in control of everything that your client sees, and none of us have those control issues. But you may want to see everything, and then you decide what gets sent out to them. And that can be a more personal touch that you're doing. But here's the reality. If you are looking like we have in here in that $200 to $250 price range, you don't have time for concierge. Your client doesn't have time for concierge. They need it to go out to them as soon as actually possible so that they can take a look at it and decide if they want to see it. Depending on the market that you're in, by the time you get an opportunity to look at that and release it to them, there could already be multiple offers on that home. So you decide with your client and how you want to handle it and what that market looks like. It's entirely up to you, but it gives you great options. So I'm going to uncheck that today so that we can see a little bit more. Now, the next one, and I believe it defaults, is show this contact in reverse prospecting results. And so as a courtesy, you should leave that check marked unless Bob, the buyer that we're working with now, is pretend. And so we want to uncheck that so that we don't have an agent reach out to us because we have a search in there. So if you also set up, market searches, because you may have a market area that you want to be the neighborhood expert or the market expert in, and so you've set up searches that are really for your knowledge, then uncheck it. But if that is actually a client, please leave that check marked. And here's why. As a listing agent, so when you're on the other side of the coin, you're a listing agent, and maybe you have a home that you have listed and there hasn't been a price change on it. Maybe the seller went in and they updated the countertops, or they tore out that ugly green shag carpeting that you told them to tear out 6 weeks ago. And so now there are new pictures, or you've done a virtual tour. You as the listing agent can do reverse prospecting on your listing, and you can see every agent who has a saved search that home matches. So that's a great way to proactively market that property. Now, the pushback I usually get on this is, oh my gosh, if I leave that in reverse prospecting, I'm going to have agents reaching out to me all the time. Okay, reality is, for those of you who have been around a little bit, have you used it much? Chances are no, and I will tell you across the board in DMAR, very, very few agents use it. And so we haven't had to a lot, But as our market slows down, or when we get to the point where our market has slowed down, or especially in a more luxury market, it's invaluable. So it's part of that working well with others. If it's a legit search, leave it checkmarked. And then the next one is enable as a favorite search on home tab. So you can actually have 10 searches on your home page that you can just click on and take a peek at right away. And so it's nice to be able to have that. Again, some use that for their own market searches. Some use it for their top 10 clients. So that's up to you. Go ahead and check mark that today, and we'll take a look at it on the homepage, and we can always delete it. All right. Next up. Now, because we didn't do concierge mode, we have to decide how often are these automatic emails going to go out to the client. So the first one is ASAP, which means as soon as there's a listing that matches the criteria, that email goes right out to let the client know, let the buyer know that there's a home that may match their criteria. They'll usually get a lot of them on Mondays because that's when a lot of listings go live. So it just depends on the client. You can choose daily, and as part of daily, you could actually have them go out twice a day. You can have them go out once a day. You can have them just go out on certain days. You could have them go out once a week. Now, the other thing this is really awesome for is if you have out-of-town clients, they can be a challenge. And especially if they are in that price point where homes go really fast. So if you know that they cannot see a home until Friday or Saturday, probably the earliest that you want them to get those alerts will be Wednesday. And so you can just let them know that they're going to get those alerts towards the end of the week. So even if something came on the market Monday, if it's still on the market Wednesday, they'll get an alert for it. And then they have the potential to maybe see it when they come into town on Friday. So that can be really helpful because, I mean, it's heartbreaking when you have an out-of-town client who on Monday sees a home that they're like, this is it. We love it. Set up the showing for Saturday when we're there. And the home's gone by Wednesday. So again, it just really depends on your client and the market. And then the last one is monthly. And monthly is one of those funny ones where I've had a lot of agents who are like, why in the world would I ever use monthly? Well, I've heard it used for a couple of different things. One would be with your new buyer. So your buyer buys a home. Now they live in a neighborhood. Ask them, do you want to know what's going on around you? You can see the houses that, go for sale, that are sold. Do you want to get that once a month? And they set them up for that. It's one of those set it and forget it kind of things. And, especially if they're that nosy kind of neighbor and wants to know what's happening, it's just an easy thing to set up for them. It's also good if you have a client who's maybe in a lease and they're still, they're like 9 months out on their lease yet. So they're, just starting to look a little bit and you're wanting to stay in their world. Maybe it's somebody who's working on their credit and they might be, 12 to 24 months out before they're even ready to start looking for a home. It's just a nice way to stay in their world where they can keep looking for homes. Because if they're not ready, willing, and able to go buy a home, if you're sending them, listings every single day, they're wanting to go look at homes, even though they can't go buy homes. So you need to remember how much value you have and not be a tour guide for those people, but, still stay in their world and still work with them. So I'm going to leave it as daily for now and then just I'll do all AM. I want you to at least do ASAP or daily so that you see this one time before you turn it off and then hit save. And so now you have a saved auto search in there. All right. Questions on sending out by email, the print PDF or auto email. I hear movement.
No,
Darn it.
good.
I was so excited. Okay. Let's go back to home so we can see that favorites tab. And so depending on where yours is at, okay, mine's over here now. Because we called it auto email, you should see it under your favorite searches. And then you can either click on it from there, you can click manage. It both takes you there. And so this is where you can change all that information. Now, if they never or if they never click on it, you may have to resend the welcome because they won't get more if they don't click on it. So you can also change your criteria if they're getting it for a while and they're like, yeah, we're just not seeing anything in that 250 and we think we want to bump up our price a little bit. That they're pre-approved for higher than that, but they were more comfortable under 250. You can go in and change that with them. So maybe now we're going up to 300 and we want to make sure and save that. And so now we can resend that and you'll see that it's going up to, where's my 300,000 or less. The other place you can find it, because maybe they did not make your top 10, is under My Matrix. So if it is an auto email, it'll be under auto email. If it's a saved search, it goes under saved searches. So if you go to those auto emails, this is also where you can turn it off. So you can either go to the tab, which opens it up, or you can check mark it, delete, or disable. I always recommend disable before delete, because even if they're like, yeah, we're not ready, I don't want to look at it right now, just leave it as disable. It keeps it in there, and then you can always refer back to it. If you delete it, it's gone. And then you're like, now what were you looking for? I thought we were doing this. It just helps keep track of things. So that's up to you. Now, because I've seen these a bunch, I'm going to delete it. All right. So we've gone through that and that. The next thing I want to take you through just a little bit. And so let's go into our recent searches. Just one of the last ones is fine. Is what is all of this information and viewing the information that you see. So as you go through the different columns, some simple things that you'll see is if there's a little plus sign in the upper right-hand corner of the photo, that means there are more than one photos. If you don't see that, that means there are no photos. As a listing agent, please make sure you have photos as soon as it hits the market. The next one is the map. And the map is really important, especially if someone is using the map as their search, because sometimes what will happen is Google Maps do not keep up with all of the subdivisions. And so your home may actually be mapped several miles away from where it actually is. So the way that you can fix that is you can get the latitude and longitude, and either you can change that on the listing, or you can have your ACR change that for you. Just send it over to them. And that will put the pin for the home where it belongs. So you can either do that in Google Maps. The problem with that is, especially if it's new construction, you're just looking at a map of dirt. So what I recommend is downloading an app, and there are several of them. I always have to look and see what it's called. The one I like to use is, it's my little pin one. I put it under so many different things. It's latitude and longitude. Oh, there it is. The one I like for iPhone is called Coordinates. And I think for Android, it may be called latitude, longitude. There are several of them out there. They're free. But what it does is it allows you, when you are at the location of the home, to basically find out what your latitude, longitude is. And then you can very simply touch a button on your app and email that over to your ACR. And so it can be put onto the MLS. So the pin appears where it's supposed to appear. So as a listing agent, super, super important. In doing those classes, I have seen 2 listings that were actually pinned on the map in China. Seems wrong, but that's where they were. So, I mean, just be aware of that kind of thing. The little clock gives you the listing history. Actually, let's see if there's an older one on here. These are all pretty new, but if it had been listed more than once, there we go. At least this has had something going on. It will give you all of the info that's going on. And then if it had been listed and or sold before, you would see all of that appear below. Now, this can be handy if it's someone else's listing, it's a new listing and there are no photos. Often what I'll do is I will look in the listing history and I'll go look at photos from the old listing. So that will help narrow it down and save some time if I want to continue to look at it. But it gives you a lot of intel for sure. And, there are agents who think that it's a great idea to cancel and relist because it comes up as a new listing. Y'all, we know we're all going to look at the history. So, I mean, it's kind of silly to do that. So you've got that to look at. The little papers are your attachments. And so that would be, it should be your seller property disclosure. If you have any builder addendums, covenants, that kind of thing, you'll find there. We've got 2 that we don't have on there yet. The next is the virtual tour, and this is the unbranded virtual tour. And then this is a column for a branded virtual tour. Now, our MLS doesn't really pull the branded one anywhere, but it can be uploaded there. This is if there's a scheduled open house. You have a quick link to showing time, the MLS number, status, if there's a price increase or decrease, and it goes across from there. And this is the agent single line, which is the default, but you can change that. Let's start first, though, with adjusting this information. So for me, when I'm looking at this, I'm probably not super interested in this unbranded tour or this branded tour. There's not going to be anything in it. Whoop, don't click in it. I'm going to cancel it. But I can drag it down to the end if it's something that I want to be there, but I don't necessarily want to look at. Now, I can also get rid of it by clicking on it and then choosing remove column. And so I can customize this. I can move the width a little bit. So maybe I want to shorten this up because of the way I like to view my screen. And y'all, I'm not sure why city does not appear, but county does. But I like to look at a city. So if you just click, you can use insert column. And this is what I was doing at the beginning. In the search, choose city and apply. And so now I can look at an address that has a city and a county, which makes me very happy. And so now if I want to keep this view as one of my options, I need to go to this little manage display, the little paper and pencil. So click on the paper and pencil, and we need to name this. And so I'm going to call this custom, maybe 9. I don't remember how many I have in here. I'm going to call it custom 9. It will say my, whatever you put. So don't put in like my search or my custom, because then it'll say my custom or my search. And then we're going to save as a copy. And so now you'll see I've created my custom 9 display. And so that will always be in my list of options. Now you'll also think about creating different displays for different kinds of searches. So if you want to do something with new construction, and for you, it is really important to have the builder listed in there. So you could have a builder display. You could put in the, whether it's new or proposed as one of your columns, whatever it is that makes it really quick for you to look at that overall. You might do multifamily. So if you work with investors, and then in that one, you might have a column for number of units and for rents. And so it just makes it really quick and easy to look at the information that you want to look at. And you can still further customize this. So maybe I'm looking at this and, you know, whether or not there's an open house, let's see. Let me cancel that. Maybe I'm just going to drag the open house down to the end because that's not as interesting for me. I don't know why it doesn't want to go clear to the end there. I'm making things disappear on my computer right now. It went back to the original spot. So you can move things down. Maybe I just need to move this. You can also sort. So anything that you hover over that turns orange, you can make that make it a quick sort, and you can also save that. So now we can manage display, and I'm going to, well, I went clear back. There's my custom 9. And then I can make some changes in it. Maybe I want to go by list date. And now I can save changes. So completely customizable. The last thing that you might want to do with this is you can set this up so that this is your default display. And for me, again, it's that city piece that I would like in my default. And so then you go to the settings wheel. And if you go to the settings wheel, now we can set the current display sort order and count per page as my search starting default. So now when I search, this is how my display will look. So it's just, again, customizing it to you, making it the most convenient for you to work with. All right. So let's do a couple of fun things. And we'll walk through just a little bit with the CMA and the quick CMA. So there are 2 that live in here, and it does want you to start out by doing your sort or doing your search, and say we've looked through these and we've decided that these 5 are comparables for the home that we're trying to do a CMA for. The quick CMA is a way to get the medians and the averages without doing any adjustments. And so it's just a 1-pager. It's fast. It's all about the numbers and the stats. But I mean, you saw how fast that was, right? Like super fast and easy. I just call it the down and dirty CMA. And so if we go back, we can look at the full CMA. And again, the full CMA is kind of a big thing. So you'll start with the name. You can describe it. But pages makes the difference with everything that you have in here. So what I would suggest is the first time that you go through, click every single one of these so that everything goes in. And it's a lot. Now, if you're somebody who needs to print it out and look at it, you can do that. But take a peek through all of these pages if this is what you want to use for your default CMA. The time that you spend setting this up will save you time in the long run. I mean, you may be somebody who's just a 1-pager. You might like just a couple of these. you decide what works in your business always, but I just want you to know that these are out there. You can move these around, move them up however you want. You can set this as your default. You can upload custom pages. So you could also put in maybe a page about you. If you do want to make this the CMA that you use, and this actually is a bit of a presentation as well. And so because we've checked everything, that means the racetrack up above, we have everything to go through. So if we put in our subject property, you can search by an old MLS number. You can type in the information manually. You can decide what the cover looks like. If you have a picture, maybe you did a drive-by, make sure that your photo is in there and with your information, your client info. You choose your comparables. So that's where we had already decided on those. And we're going to, you can do it from listings. You can do it from the tax charts. We can decide what kind of map we want. Now it's going to move slow. We can look at them on the map because sometimes we might look at it and go, oh, wait, this number 4 doesn't make any sense at all. I need to go back and get rid of that. You can make adjustments in here. And so it does allow you to put in all of these different details. And so you can make your adjustments right in this report. When it gets to pricing, that's where you take a look at the pricing. You can look at the suggested price. It has you type it in. And then when you finish it, then you can see everything that's in there. And so once you get to the save, you can either view the CMA or email the CMA. So I would recommend doing all of those and deciding if that's what you want to use. Otherwise, there are some great listing presentations available in resources for agents that are a little bit more presentation style and they're a little more branded. But this can be a quick way to have this set up for you in the event you've got like 5 minutes to do one. So just an option. And then one of the other questions I get are, what in the world are carts? So what carts are is you can kind of view them. I always call them sticky notes. I think about, like, if I'm searching for things or I have an idea and I want to, run it by a client, I may write it down on a sticky note. And so this is my area for sticky notes. So if we go back to one of our recent searches, and maybe I've done this search for another client, but I'm like, oh my gosh, my other client, Bob, because I have multiple Bobs in my group. My client Bob might love this. So I'm going to check mark this really quick. I'm going to go to carts and I'm going to find Bob's cart. I'm going to throw it in there. I'm going to add it to, and now I'm going to finish doing whatever I was working on. Because doesn't that happen to you sometimes? You come across something, you're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. You write it on a sticky note because you're doing something else, and then maybe you lose the sticky note. You're like, crap, what was that house? And now you're going to spend 25 minutes looking for that home that you found that you can't seem to find now. So it's basically sticky notes, but they can be really handy. Some use it for setting up showings as well. They'll put things in or out of the cart if they're setting up showings. So again, it's just how your brain works and what works for you. Okay. What questions do you have? And then I'll have a little bit of a quiz and we'll be done.
Michelle, in the subject there during the CMA, that's the residential property you're comparing, right?
Correct. That's
okay.
your subject property.
Okay. And if you want to look at the other houses like in that area that have sold, maybe that are like that, you would just go back and hit the sold or pending or active just to compare all aspects.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All
When
right.
you go into that search, you're just setting up your search. Actually, let me do recent searches. And then under criteria, we could just add in pending and sold.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now we have a whole bunch more. Now we have 137 in the last 180 days. We might want to narrow down that criteria a little bit. All right, what else? All right, I'm going to ask you my quiz questions then. So you may need to unmute here. What is the quickest way to look for MLS numbers?
Search bar.
Yep, the speed bar right at the top.
Speed bar.
And multiple MLS numbers? No comma, just a space. What if you don't know how to spell something?
Asterisk.
Asterisk. What if you want to exclude something?
Exclamation point.
Exactly. What if you want to look for, this is my trick question, multiple addresses? I saw Tracy's eyebrows go up. That was fun. So client calls, they've been driving around on Sunday like everybody has been. I saw this address and this address and this address. How will you look those up the quickest?
The bottom search bar, right?
What?
It's the bottom search bar under my listings.
The bottom.
Oh no, just the search, the regular search.
Yep, you've got to go into the regular search under quick. And it actually lives here right under the map. It's this little more button. So you can actually search up to 10 addresses in the quick search. You can only do one in the speed bar, but you can do up to 10 in the quick search. All right. That's all I got, unless you've got questions.